Welcome to the Tuesday episode of DB2 here, going into week 8 of the NFL season, talking injuries, talking waiver wire pickups, all that good stuff. David Brem here with Daniel Butler as always. Butler, how'd the weekend treat you?
It actually treated me quite well. The one bad thing is I went against Joe Burrow, so that was awful. He had an amazing game. I think he was quarterback one, but I had Jamar Chase. Doesn't that suck for my opponent? Every time, that long touchdown, and you're like,
Yeah.
that's your quarterback, but you actually are farther behind now. Jamar Chase, man, another ridiculous week. And
Yeah.
when we did our wide receiver rankings, we talked about Jamar Chase as, you talked about him like he's got to be top 10 with how he's playing. I didn't have him in my top 10. I'm not gonna lie. I think he might be top 5 now. I don't even know. He doesn't
There's a
get the
good,
he
he's
doesn't get the
insane.
volume like target wise, but we're 7 weeks in. When do you say this is? I think he's currently wide receiver 4 or something like that on a points per game basis.
Yeah.
It's literally insane, averaging over 20 points a game in a PPR league. So yeah, he's been incredible. Probably even better in a standard league because he's got so many long touchdowns. Not points wise, obviously, but more separated from other
Comparatively.
guys. Yeah. So yeah, he's been incredible. So nice to have him on your team. If you got him on your team, you could literally have him, Cooper Cup, and insert whoever other wide receiver you want, and it's a possibility. So it's pretty wild.
Yeah, there could be some stacked teams with kind of how late he went. So I'm now strongly regretting I almost took him in my dynasty league at number 2, but I took Pitts. I may have made a mistake there. That could have. I needed a tight end, but I lost the game by 0.38 points this week, so that was fun. But luckily, it wasn't in my main league, so I'm doing all right. But all right, so we're gonna start off with injuries. On Tuesdays, we do injuries, we do waiver wire pickups, just kind of things you might need to know before that rolls around, and then tomorrow we'll get to all the upcoming games. First game, Broncos Browns. Only really one injury to talk about, and honestly, it's iffy on how relevant it is to fantasy. But Peoples Jones went down with a groin strain. Looks like a couple of weeks. We've talked about the Browns wide receiver situation a lot. Not a whole lot of value there, anyways. So not
Yeah,
a huge loss.
even less value with Jarvis coming back, and less value for anybody else. Jarvis, OBJ. If you're feeling good about that, I'm still not sold. But Donovan Peoples Jones, you just obviously you can't. He didn't suit up in this game. You can't play him with those guys healthy. If they're in the game,
No.
there's not a third wide receiver. They play a lot of two tight end sets. Yeah, you see Hooper a lot. You see Njoku. You even see I think it's Harrison Bryant. Like you see a lot of tight ends in this for this team. So yeah, Donovan Peoples Jones should not.
Plus the rushing game is so prolific
Yeah,
that
it doesn't matter who runs, which I guess we could talk about that even though it's not
yeah.
listed here. Dearness Johnson was absolutely incredible. He looked really good, and I think we can say whoever is the starting running back for Cleveland is a top 10 guy. Like,
Yeah.
it's just
Yeah.
crazy. But Nick Chubb is practicing. It looks like he'll be back. So he should still be owned because of
Oh,
Kareem Hunt being
absolutely.
on IR. And we'll see the breakdown of how they play. But since he showed so much, I wouldn't be surprised. I don't think it's going to be 50-50. I think Chubb is going to probably get 60. But Dearness
Mhm.
Johnson might still get close to 40% of the looks because it was so effective with Kareem Hunt, what they were doing. So, and we see what Dearness can do with a full workload. So I honestly think that he could still see a good amount of action here up
Yeah, I
against
never thought I'd
Pittsburgh.
say this, but in the Cleveland offense, the number 2 running back is somebody I want on my team. Like he's at least a flex consideration, if not better, as long as Hunt's still out.
Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb were both like top 12 in PPR
Mhm.
before Hunt went on IR. So yeah, maybe not officially now because Hunt got injured in that game, so he might have fell. But going in that game, they were both top 12. So yeah, Hunt was incredible. Dearness Johnson looked incredible in this game. So obviously, still hold on to him. Don't just drop him because you see Nick Chubb back. Now, when Hunt comes back, you probably will not be too
Yeah,
relevant. But for now,
obviously.
Hunt's gonna be out a few more weeks at least. So yeah, I'd say hold on to him, and good chance you may still be starting him depending on the rest of your roster.
Yep. Next up, Jets Patriots. Zach Wilson went down in the second quarter with his knee. Um, it looks like probably a couple to a handful of weeks. One of those things they don't really haven't put out an official timeline yet. but not a guy you were starting anyways. But could be interesting for the rest of the offense with the trade today for Joe Flacco. How does that make you feel about their wide receivers? I know we don't want to get too deep. That's for tomorrow, but
Yeah, I mean, but you're obviously not picking up Joe Flacco unless you're just doing it for
no.
the memes, and you could do that depending on
Or
where your
you're in like
team's at.
a 16 teamer that
Two,
average
16 team, two quarterback league, like,
yeah.
or maybe it's a skill position or whatever. I guess that would be wow.
Yeah.
Like we could put any or
Super
not skill.
flex.
You could put it,
Yeah.
yeah. So maybe something like that. But you're probably not playing Joe Flacco. But I don't know. Honestly, I don't know. I like to believe that Joe Flacco still got something left. All right, I like to believe it. Now I'm not gonna lie. I don't think I'm not too optimistic about this upcoming week. But give him some. He's a veteran quarterback. You just never know. I think that the offense I think it could be okay. We didn't talk about Ty Johnson, but he suffered a concussion. So Michael Carter had 8 catches in this game. Somebody that you've probably been. I mean, he should be owned. He's been. He's probably owned in every league that you're in. But Michael Carter, his value, he had a really nice game thanks to the 8 catches, even without a touchdown. But I'd like to believe that this is going to be okay, or could even be an upgrade for Corey Davis, Jamison Crowder. But honestly, I just don't know. If you were starting Corey Davis before or Jamison Crowder, I guess
Then
you're
you're
probably
starting
still
now.
starting them
Yeah.
now.
But I saw people like, oh man, now I can start Corey Davis. I'm like, I don't know why you think this is what needed to put you over the edge.
But I like Joe Flacco. I do. I got a soft spot for him, so I'm hoping he does well, and we'll see. I mean, I don't think you're really moving the needle at all if you're a
Like I
Corey
hope
Davis or
Joe
Jamison
Flacco
Crowder.
comes in, Corey Davis has a crazy game, and I can start starting him again. But it will not be the first game back.
Yeah,
Like
we'll
that's not
see,
happening.
and I'm interested to see what it does to Michael Carter in the backfield as well, because he had 9 targets in this game. So is he going to be highly involved in the offense in the receiving game? 8 catches, if he's getting a handful of catches, that's really interesting for any running back, really. So that to me is something that I'm going to look out for. I think it could mess with Michael Carter's value, or maybe it will enhance it. I don't know. But for me, wide receivers probably go unchanged. If you're starting them, go ahead, keep doing it. If you're not, you're probably good because you shouldn't hopefully be in that spot. But depending on how deep your league is, it's not like Corey Davis has been awful. Jamison Crowder, I think, is a solid deep league wide receiver as well.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Next one. A notable injury, but at the same time, not a notable injury. Patrick Mahomes left due to concussion concern. He didn't have a concussion, so no worries there, other than the fact that he just hasn't been what you drafted him to be. But as far as injuries go, nothing to talk about here.
Yeah, I mean, I think you still play Patrick Mahomes.
I didn't say don't start him, but you're not disappointed if you do have him.
I mean, this wasn't a great week, but he was like quarterback 1, 2, 3, somewhere up there after the. I mean, it's not like he had. I know he's tied with Zach Wilson, we just talked about, in interceptions. That's not a great list to be on. All right, most interceptions in the league, but he still throws a lot. He throws for a lot of yards, gets a lot of touchdowns, runs still a top 3, 4 quarterback. So you drafted him at 1. Obviously, you're hoping he's 1, but it's not like he's really been a disappointment fantasy wise. Real NFL wise, maybe, but fantasy he's been pretty good. Not this week though. It was a little rough.
So yeah. So the next game, there's no injuries to talk about, but I think there's a couple players we want to chat about for waiver wire. Panthers at the Giants, no injuries. Always like to see that. But this week on bye, we've got the Ravens and the Raiders, which means not a lot of teams, but probably one team in every league has lost their quarterback, and 2 teams have lost their tight end because of bye weeks. And I honestly think both ends of this Giants tandem could be good streaming pickups this week. They're playing the Kansas City Chiefs, which the defense has been extraordinarily lackluster this season. And Evan Ingram, I think, is a really nice streaming option. And I know we kind of want to sprinkle these in. How would you feel about streaming him if you had? Because I mean, the Waller owner and the Andrews owner are both looking for somebody this week.
Yeah, I mean, I think Evan Ingram is high tight end two territory. I don't know. I mean, the problem is a lot of teams will carry two tight ends for whatever reason. So like if Evan Ingram, he's not highly owned, so he might be somebody who's not owned. So you don't have a whole lot of options. If
I
you
just feel like if you own one of those two guys, you're probably not carrying two.
you shouldn't be, right? Usually that's
No.
the way it works. So yeah, I think he's not a bad option. They're going against the Chiefs. He had 8 targets in this game. Daniel Jones was solid. A quarterback that I really, even though I know he wasn't great the last couple weeks, he started off really hot. I personally think this might be Daniel Jones might have I mean, it's against the Chiefs, so it's easy to say this, but I think he might have a pretty good game this week.
Yeah.
In week 8, so I'm pretty high on him as well this week as a nice streaming option for quarterback and not very highly owned, especially after his last few weeks. So I like Daniel Jones. I like Evan Ingram, and also Darius Slayton. All their wide receivers are banged up, basically. They've missed so much time. Slayton, I think Galladay's going to be out a few more weeks. Shepard's been out. If these guys continue to be out, if, their top 3 or 3 of their top 4 guys are out, Slayton, like it was this week, Slayton, I think, is a really, really nice play, especially in a point per reception league. Gets a lot of volume. If there's nobody else, who else is getting it? And the same thing could be said about Shepard. I like him as well. I've talked highly of him a lot. So if he's suits up with all these guys banged up, another guy I really like against this Chiefs defense.
Yeah, absolutely. And honestly, at this point, any of those kind of like 3 guys, you keep them on your bench if they're hurt, because it seems like only one of them is going to play a week. Like that just seems to be how it's going to go.
Though I will say Kenny Galladay, I will be dropping, I think, this week. He's going to miss a few more weeks, it looks like.
Yeah.
And he has not been good. So completely okay with dropping Kenny Galladay. I'm taking the L on that one. I drafted him. It's time to move on. Most people have already taken the L and moved on. I was a little late to it. I think he's down to like 50%. So ownership. So yeah, I say move on from Kenny Galladay. If you see him out there and you want to take a stab on him, you got a deep bench, sure. Because I think a lot of people will be dropping him or already have dropped him. But for me, my bench is not that deep, so it will be moving on from Kenny Galladay.
Yeah. All right. Next up, we have Falcons Dolphins. Dolphins had a couple. Malcolm Brown went down with a quad injury. Looks like a week or so. Jalen Waddle looks to be probably a couple weeks as well. Yeah. So, couple of guys that, I mean, Waddle could have been on your team. They're not huge names, but definitely guys that could be on your bench or on your team. That honestly, especially with Brown, like at this point, like if you are rostering him, you probably just don't need to anymore. I wouldn't bother. But Waddle's had a solid week in week 6. Was on his way and honestly had a pretty decent day, even with the injury this week. So, I don't know. It could be a nice game for Parker, assuming he gets in there.
Yeah, that's really the name I want to talk about here. Waddle's been pretty good. I mean, he had a really good week in week 6. This week was pretty good, even with the injury. So yeah, I don't have the current rankings yet. I haven't done those, but probably I'm guessing still top 30 wide receiver for the year. You drafted wide receiver 44, so don't see why you would. That's pretty happy about that. But you gotta, somebody's got to be on your bench. Definitely don't drop him. He's been good. So yeah, Devontae Parker. I think if he suits up, I mean, who else is out there? I mean, I don't know who else they're throwing to besides the tight end. So why not? If Devontae Parker plays, I think they are playing the Bills in Buffalo. Don't love the matchup, I'll admit that. But even with a tough matchup, if Devontae Parker is out there, I still think he's a solid play. He's going to be their number 1 wide receiver. So Tua's got to throw it to somebody. So I think I might take a stab on him over somebody like, this might sound crazy. I haven't been watching the game because we're doing this, but Tyler Lockett. I mean, if you're in that situation, like, I don't know, I might go with Parker just because Lockett has, with Geno. Last I checked, it was almost halftime. He had 1 catch for 5 yards. So,
yeah.
I don't know. I don't know where I'd have to go through the rankings, but right now I'm pretty low on. There's definitely some wide receivers that have been disappointment that you might have an option there.
Yeah, absolutely. Next up, Washington and Green Bay. One injury, a guy we've talked about, but really hasn't been relevant, like we were kind of hoping and thought he might be. Diami Brown. They're completely up in the air with what's going on with him right now. No reports, but probably not a guy you're rostering anyways, unless you're in a super deep league.
I will go ahead and take a moment here to say that Terry McLaurin, wide receiver for the Washington football team, is very good. I'm convinced he's very good. 7 for 122 and a touchdown. He could have had 2 touchdowns too. He had a ball just bounce off his chest. I don't think he got that touchdown on that drive. So yeah, he's pretty good. So good job if you drafted him. I'm very high on Terry McLaurin. His ADP is 10, so I guess I think he's going to be about there the rest of the year. So I guess you're getting about what you paid for. But I'm a big fan. Good wide receiver. Will mention though, if Logan Thomas is back, Ricky Seals-Jones can be dropped. It's not gonna. Both tight ends aren't gonna be relevant.
It's not both of them.
No. But if Logan Thomas doesn't come back, Ricky Seals-Jones he's a top 10 guy. So whoever is the tight end for Washington is gonna be a top 10 guy.
It might be worth looking on your waiver wire too. Like somebody, there's a
I was looking at the
ownership
in Yahoo. They were basically 50%. So there's a good chance that and maybe go ahead and mention this now. This is a great time to check the waiver wire, check your transaction history for any league, and see with bye weeks if any names got dropped that should not have been dropped. There might be somebody out there.
It happens.
They dropped because of bye weeks, and I don't know what they're thinking. My league, Money League, Zach Moss got dropped, and I'm like, that makes no sense. It's like a top 20 guy, top 20, top 25. I don't know where, like running back. I'm obviously gonna pick him up. I have the number 1 waiver wire claim, so
which is the only reason you're saying this. You wouldn't want to tip anybody off.
Yeah, of course, sure. So yeah, I just watch out there. Maybe not a Zach Moss who's 80% owned or something, but there could be somebody who's 70, 80% owned, 90% owned, whatever. That somebody just dropped for whatever reason. Really, it's because there's a bye week and they're just like, I got to pick somebody else up. I don't know.
Definitely check that. And Logan Thomas would be a guy who, if you have a spot on your bench and you don't have one of the stud tight ends, I'd pick him up now. And if he plays this week, great. But if he doesn't, he's probably playing next week.
I think
then you're good to go.
I think if he's besides if you already have a stud tight end, I think I think he should be one of the top priorities. You're going to tight end who's probably a top. I mean, he was a top 10 guy before he got injured. So you're getting a tight end who is a top 8 guy probably when he does come back. So I think, and then you don't have to worry about your tight end rest of the season too, which is nice. So I think Logan Thomas, if he's out there, should be owned.
Yep. A couple of games in a row with no injuries. That's what we like to see. Bengals Ravens, all clean. Bengals, I'm guessing a game we're going to talk about a lot
Humphrey,
tomorrow.
His pride got a little injured of what Jamar Chase did to him. I saw the stats.
I don't think it's going to keep him out of the game though. No. I think he'll probably power.
And they don't show the defensive injuries on here. They just show because that's not too relevant fantasy wise. But Jamar Chase, he brutalized Marlon Humphrey in that game.
Yeah, you can't be too mad. He's doing it to everybody, and I love it. I love every second of it. I definitely didn't look up Jamar Chase signed mini helmets and stuff to put behind me. I'm all in. Lions Rams, no injuries again. That's what we like to see. A nice clean game. I know the Lions. You definitely had some thoughts on guys you want to talk about.
Oh yeah. Let me pull up the. Yeah.
For once, I don't mean. You actually.
I really thought when you led that, I'm like, are we gonna go right past the guy, Jared Goff versus Matthew Stafford here, traded. I watched this game pretty closely, more so because the Rams, not because Jared Goff, because why would anybody watch a game quarterbacked by Jared Goff? But Jared Goff has not been great. But one thing he did do well in this league and this game is Kalif Raymond, 6 for 115 on 8 targets. He was the most snapped wide receiver. He had the most snaps. I don't know why I worded it like that, with 81% of the snaps. So he's clearly the number 1 guy out there. This week he was clearly. So he actually even had more snaps than TJ Hawkinson, which obviously Hawkinson's a stud. But yeah, I think he's kind of interesting as the wide receiver 1 on a not great wide receiver core, obviously, but
Yeah.
he's kind of interesting. And DeAndre Swift continues to make me look like an absolute genius, man. He looks really good. I'm a
He
big
does.
fan. I know that has nothing to do. We're gonna talk about this. I'm going way too much into detail. It's supposed to be the Wednesday episode, but man, he looked good. And
Yeah.
Jared Goff
This
did
will be
not look great.
another game I feel like is going to take up a good chunk of tomorrow's episode.
Uh,
There's a lot to talk about.
yeah, that's definitely true. But Kalif Raymond is definitely a name I think in 12 team or deeper league, a deeper 14, 16, like should probably be owned. Like after a game like this, 8 targets, 6 for 115, number one guy, which whatever that means. So on the Detroit Lions wide receivers.
Yep. All right. I lost my place. There we are. Eagles, Raiders. Miles Sanders, ankle sprain injury. They haven't officially called it anything. What I'm reading is this week seems unlikely, but he's kind of week to week after that. So, a guy who hasn't been really, I mean, depending on your roster makeup, a guy you might be starting, but some interesting names. If he can't go, you automatically kind of go to Gainwell because that's kind of been what's been going on. But it's kind of looking like Boston Scott might be the lead runner there with Gainwell doing more in the passing game.
Yeah, I kind of feel like it's running back by committee. If
Yeah.
Miles Sanders misses a week, which could happen. So I do think Gainwell for most leagues is probably the number one waiver claim.
I'd rather have the upside of the
But
passing.
no, clearly over Boston Scott. I just mean over everybody out there. I think Gainwell's probably the number one guy of the guys who is probably not really owned but should be owned.
Yeah. Oh, gotcha.
But with that said, I'm not too high on. I was higher on him before because it looked like he might kind of take over the role as Miles Sanders. But then you start looking at the snap counts. Miles Sanders was getting basically all of them. It wasn't even a committee. It wasn't passing. It was Miles Sanders' show, and he was. It looked like everything I looked on Twitter is like he's ready to break out. It's gonna Miles buy low, buy low, buy low. Everybody, and then obviously this injury. So if this injury lags for a while, of course Kenneth Gainwell is going to have more value. But I mean, if especially he might not even miss a week, he might miss just 1 week. I don't think I'm not overly excited about this as a trying to pick up Gainwell. If he's if you're in a really savvy league where everybody's owning everything and you can pick him up, he's out there. Okay, sure, because I think he is one of the better pickups. But I don't think this week this week's just doesn't have any crazy great pickups. I don't think that's the best one, but I'm not overly excited.
Yeah, there's nothing insane this week. So the last 3 games, I'm just gonna kind of power through and stop me if there's somebody in the games you want to talk about. Texans, Cardinals, no injuries. You
Okay, hear me out.
should have known.
This game did not go well. It was a scoregami, by the way. 31-5 never happened in the NFL history. But Tyrod Taylor looks like he's going to come back.
Well, that's good.
Hold on. Okay. First 2 weeks of the season, he got injured in week 2 against Cleveland. If he would have played that whole game, confident because he was already at like 17 points in the first half, he would be on a points per game basis, only two weeks. He's still like quarterback 11. He would be a top 10 quarterback, maybe even like top 5, 6. I don't know where it'd be, because I think he had like 23 points in week 1 and then 17 in week 2. So he's about 20 points per game. He was really good. I just say that as somebody who, if you're looking at somebody like anybody in this Texans offense, David Johnson, who's good chance he's starting to look he's looking like the guy to me. You see people out there, David Johnson, Brandon Cooks, if you can get him on but he's been really good still, so I don't think you're probably getting Brandon Cooks.
But I think he takes a reasonable step up.
So like
even from what you've been getting.
Yeah, so you see these guys for the Texans. I think that Tyrod Taylor is clearly a better quarterback than Davis Mills. He's a better passer. He's better running. I mean, he's a better quarterback, and he even previous to Rod and what we thought he was, a solid, okay, average. The first 2 weeks he was like really, really, really good. I'm not expecting that the rest of the season, but I think he's going to be clearly better than Davis Mills. So just again, David Johnson is a name that I think is interesting because if the offense is better, David Johnson, Mark Ingram, Philip Lindsay, like those guys, if one of those guys does break out, I think it's probably going to be David Johnson, but maybe Mark Ingram. I think there could be value there, more than there was at least. And there's a good chance that I think that a lot of like deeper leagues, especially like these guys, should be owned, especially David Johnson. So
Yeah, I'd agree with that. And it does really seem like David Johnson is. I mean, we've seen this before there where we thought we knew which way a team was going, they went a different way. But it seems like if I had to bet right now, David Johnson would be the way to go.
he's technically listed as 2 on the depth chart, but you know those things are a lie, and they don't tell the truth. He had the most snaps, 54% to Ingram's 38. Those are the guys. David Johnson had 7 carries. Ingram had 6 carries for 9 yards for Ingram. Not sure that's much of Ingram's fault. The old offense is pretty bad. 7 for 25. Lindsey also had 2 carries. It's definitely, to me, Johnson, Ingram, Lindsey. But obviously, if there was an injury to Johnson or Ingram, the other guy's value would go up significantly. So again, just and I don't think you really need to own Ingram, but again, just watch out for that kind of stuff.
Yep. All right. Bears Buccaneers. Feels like a team. We'll talk about the Bucks quite a bit tomorrow, but I don't know that there's anything for today's episode that's relevant as far as pickups.
Bears, yeah, Cole Kmet. I talked about him before as a streaming option. He's not very widely owned. I do think that I know this was a tough game. I still believe that the Bears offense, it can't be any worse, but I do think that Cole Kmet, it feels like he's starting to get better. It's starting to work a little bit more. I know this game didn't work overall, but I'm high on Cole Kmet rest of the season. So another option for the coming weeks. If your tight ends on buy, or if you're streaming options, you maybe look at a matchup and see, like, okay, I don't hate that. So do we have? I'm looking for this. They're definitely not on buy. Do you know who the Bears play?
The Bears, they play the Niners.
Oh, I don't know why I didn't see it. I was right in front of me. Yeah. Okay. It's at home. That is not obviously the best matchup, but you might not have another option, or you might want to try it. I do think this offense will be a little bit better, which isn't saying much, but.
All right, last game with no injuries. Colts Niners. Not much to talk about as far as waiver wire pickups.
It was gross because of the rain. Yeah, I do want to mention real quick that Garoppolo, I almost said Garoppolo is he's on the edge. Like, is he gonna? I don't know. With Lance, we'll see if Lance comes back this week. He's injured or maybe coming back. Let's hope. But even if he's back, we don't know 100%. Shanahan didn't really say I don't know. Like, he's not really been committed to Garoppolo. This is the first time he really is I'm not really sure. So we'll see. I kind of feel like it's going to be Trey Lance. I feel
like it's going to be.
But
I just feel like Garoppolo is.
I don't know. I think people are saying Shanahan's on the hot seat right now. I think he's going to try to go with Trey Lance in this game if he's healthy. Obviously, if he's not, Garoppolo's going to play. But again, Trey Lance, rest of the season, whenever he gets the go-ahead and get the start, if he is going to get that, Trey Lance is obviously super interesting as a fantasy quarterback because of his dynamic potential. I mean, he runs a lot, and I think he's gonna be able. I think the offense is gonna be pretty good. Debo's been amazing. Kittle comes back when he comes back. The Elijah Mitchell, if he's somehow not owned in your league, he should be owned. But he should definitely be owned. We both picked him up last week in leagues, randomly. Why was he dropped?
I don't know why he was dropped.
But yeah, so I'm pretty high on Trey Lance. If he does, whenever he eventually does get the nod, and hopefully it's this week.
Yeah. I do want to bring up one streaming option that I just forgot to bring up when we talked about their game. But I think Tannehill had a pretty decent day, if I remember correctly. There was a lot going on. And,
yeah, he definitely had a good day.
Yeah, he had a pretty good day. And then they play, and they've got the Colts this week. So if you are a Lamar Jackson owner and you're just looking for a stream, there's a reasonable chance Tannehill's out there. There'd be worse weeks to stream him in than this week. So
yeah,
just a guy I wanted to throw out there. I forgot to bring up.
Yeah, and there's some other guys just real quick. The Jags weren't by, so we didn't talk about them. Trevor Lawrence, I talked about him last week or the week before. high
You're
on him.
slowly falling in love with Trevor
I
Lawrence.
guess so. Even though he plays for the Jags, Jags. I don't even consider them a rival really because they've been so bad for so long. But now we're kind of the Jags, the Texans. That's what. So
You wish you were the Jags.
yeah. I mean, honestly, I feel like they're way more upside over there. But yeah. Jags, Trevor Lawrence. I'm pretty high on him. Playing the Seahawks in Week 8 has a really nice schedule rest of the season. So I think he has a real potential of being a top 10 quarterback rest of the season. So somebody I think you could easily plug and play on Week 8. And there's some other names that are, you're just looking at matchups. Like Daniel Jones, which we mentioned, some quarterbacks that probably are out there that you could play.
If for some reason Burrow's still out there, which I feel like in leagues where like a lot of people subscribe to the one quarterback on their team philosophy, because those are out there. Like the smarter leagues where nobody holds two, Burrow could be sitting there. And he's been really good, and he plays the Jets. So
Yeah, I mean, he was drafted at quarterback 13. There's a shot in a 10-team league that he probably still would have been drafted, but after the first couple weeks, it wasn't good, so they could have dropped him or something. So
just
it's never
check.
picked up. But obviously now, Burrow throwing for 400 yards and 3 touchdowns, feeling pretty good about the Bengals. I feel like looking back at our very first episode, and then a few episodes after that too, we were pretty high on the Bengals offense, especially you with Jamar Chase, but I was high on the whole offense, and I was high on.
Don't try to take
Higgins.
Chase from me.
I was high on Chase. I was even decently high on Boyd comparatively. So I liked them all. I liked Mixon. I liked the whole offense. So it's nice to see that coming around. For being, it looks like we were telling the truth. Not just Chase, but Burrow as well. Burrow's now also being a top 10 guy. So, which he's been last week, and I haven't actually wrote it out, but I'm pretty sure he's quarterback 1 this week. So
I feel fairly
was pretty
confident
good.
in that.
Was there
I don't know.
anybody?
Geno Smith could overtake it.
Yeah, we don't know. We mentioned Tyrod as well. Just somebody that he averaging 20 points a game, and that's with getting injured in the first half in 2 games. So one game 23 points, second game 17 and a half, and that's pretty good. So he looked pretty good. A name to look out for. He runs a decent amount. Again, you like that with quarterbacks. If they're going to put some rushing up, it's going to be kind of interesting. Brandon Bolden, Ramondre Stevenson in New England was a healthy scratch. So Brandon Bolden looked like the new James White spot where he had a bunch of catches. So again, in a PPR format, he's kind of interesting. And finally, running back again, Samaje Perine out of Cincinnati. Didn't talk about him. I don't think I mentioned him. Should be owned in every single league. I think I saw he's 7%. He had almost half the snaps. Mixon always seems to be banged up. It just seems that way. So if you see Mixon is not practicing or just seems banged up, I don't hate him as a flex play, kind of like the, running back 30-ish. And obviously if Mixon doesn't play, he's top 10,
I feel like we've just
15
jinxed
guy.
him because we talked about him. We talked about him after week 5, and we kind of felt the same way, and then he did nothing in week 6. So now I just feel like we're jinxing the guy. But no, I'm 100% with you. I don't know that I'm playing him even as a flex if Mixon's in, but with Mixon out, it's a clear cut. And also, still on the Bengals, we might as well just switch this to a Bengals podcast at a certain point. Azuma had another low volume but 2 touchdown game. A nice flex option. Seems to, yes, he's touchdown dependent. So is 95% of the tight ends in the league.
And finally, a name that we talked about right before, then I somehow forgot. Thursday night. So I guess we'll end it on this. Thursday night, we have the Green Bay Packers taking on the Arizona Cardinals in what is a fantastic Thursday night football game. We'll get a nice one. Hopefully it turns out to be good. It looks like Davante Adams has a pretty good chance of not playing because of COVID testing positive. So Alan Lazard, if he's available, which he probably is, I mean, he looks like a great option here. Scantling, I'm just drawing MVS Valdez. Is out. There you go, Valdez. Yeah, I know the initials. But yeah, he's out. He's on IR. So Lazard is the guy. So I think he's maybe even a top 20 guy because who else Rodgers going to throw to?
Yeah, if Adams isn't playing,
Rodgers is not going to throw for a lot of yards. I guess the thing, it's not like the number 1 wide receiver on a decent offense, or it's the number 1 wide receiver with maybe the best quarterback in the NFL. So he's gonna throw it to him. I mean, he's gonna throw it to him. Like it's like the most lock of the century, 5+ catches. I'm gonna say it. So if Adams is out, so Lazard.
It is a weird situation. Like you don't normally get wide receiver like 1 week, like, hey, you feel really good, and then honestly you might not hold on to him. But this is one of those situations.
Yeah, I mean they're only a one wide receiver team with Adams, and Adams still somehow always gets open, and somehow he's incredible. He's maybe the best wide receiver in the NFL. He's up there. So, yeah, but with him out, which it looks like that's a good chance. Lazard is really interesting, and if you have a bye, you have a spot. Again, I know wide receivers are so tough to hold because this really is like a 1 week thing, but he's probably better than a guy you could be starting. And then I know that doesn't necessarily mean you pick him up because you might not be able to drop somebody, but including the guy that because it's a 1 week thing. But if it's something that somebody you can pick up, I think he's definitely better than a lot of other guys that are out there.
Yeah, agreed. All right, so that is the Tuesday episode. Hopefully we got some guys so you can look out on the waiver wire or that kind of stuff. Guys, you know, injury-wise. We will be back tomorrow, go through every game for Week 8. I say this every week, but it just seems like it's flying by. It feels like we just started the season, and we're going into Week 8. So we'll cover every game tomorrow. Thursday, Friday, Saturday, I would tell you what we're doing, but I would be lying to you because we have no idea. But we'll have some episodes on Thursday, Friday, Saturday for you as well. If you made it this far, thank you. We very much appreciate it. Hit the like button if you haven't subscribed. Subscribe. Like I said, 5 episodes a week. Leave us a comment if there's something you'd like us to cover on those 3 episodes. They're kind of free form every week, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Yeah, thank you so much. I was looking at the subscriber count. I think it was at 425. And the only reason I'm putting that number out there is so when I watch this in the future, I'm going to be like, wow, we have 1 million subscribers now. At that time, we only had 425. Of course, I could also look at the analytics too, and it would show exactly what we had at this date. But
yeah, but what do you know about numbers?
But anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. All the subscriptions there. That's incredible. That's a lot of people. So thank you so much. We do appreciate that. Like if you did enjoy, and come back tomorrow and Thursday and Friday and Saturday. And on Sunday, just watch all the videos on repeat, but mute it. You don't need to watch it because watch the football, but it helps.
Just put it on the background.
Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day. See ya.
See ya.